let's get started. This week, we're going to focus on converting fragments to sentences. So let's do a quick recap. Went to the supermarket to get food. This is a fragment. A sentence would be, they went to the store for food. So if you need a little more help with remembering how to distinguish between sentences and fragments, I would suggest you watch the lesson 1 video. The link is in the description below to get a refresher, to remind yourself how to distinguish between fragments and sentences. So let's talk about how you converting fragments to sentences. Before we begin, let's go over this word converting. So converting or convert means to change. You're changing something. How do I convert fragments to sentences? Let's practice. Before you can convert, you need to think about what is missing from the fragment. Is the subject missing? Is there no complete predicate? Or is the independent clause missing? So let's look at this example up here. This is a fragment from last week's assignment, and we're gonna figure out what's missing and then convert it later. Sit still throughout the entire class. What's missing? The subject. We don't know who was sitting still throughout the entire class. They were all, They were all what? They were all who? It's not a complete predicate. It doesn't tell us who they all were and what they all were doing. Even though Vicky went to bed early, that may sound correct, but it's actually missing the independent clause. Okay, so this is an example of a dependent clause, and it needs to have an independent clause. They're together, they're married. You can't separate the dependent clause from the independent clause. So now you're going to practice. You're gonna head over to Kahoot and practice identifying what's missing from the fragment. In a few seconds, you're gonna pause. Now that you've completed the Kahoot, now we're gonna practice converting those fragments into sentences. Our fragment here. Sit still throughout the entire class. What's missing? The subject. We don't know who. So how would I write that as a complete sentence? What could I add to make it complete? A name. I added the name Nalaine. Nalaine sits still throughout the entire class. Or we could add a person or the name of a group. So the child sits still throughout the entire class. Now let's look at example number 2. They were all. What were they all doing? Who are they? Okay, we don't know. So we need to add that information in the predicate. So they all were excited. They were all waiting for the movie to start. And here we're missing the independent clause because this is a dependent clause. Dependent clauses cannot stand alone. Even though Vicky went to bed early, what? There's no independent clause. It may sound complete, but it's not. Even though Vicky went to bed early, she still woke up late. She still woke up late could be a sentence by itself. But since we started off with the dependent clause, it needs this independent clause. Even though Vicky went to bed early, she woke up exhausted. So now we're going to return to the first 9 pages of March. Write about what's happening in the first 9 pages of the book. You're gonna head on over to your You Practice and complete the Converting Fragments to Sentences handout. It should look something like this. You're gonna read each of these fragments. There are 4 and they're from lesson number 1, and you're gonna convert them. So I added some pictures to spice it up a little bit. So we have the number 3, and we're gonna do this one together. John Lewis and Hosea Williams. That is a fragment. What is it missing? The predicate. So we're going to complete it. So I came up with an example on my own. You can use it. John Lewis and Hosea Williams were protesters. So this sentence in the last part focuses on who they are, who they were, okay? We could also say or describe what they're doing. So John Lewis and Hosea Williams were walking. You're gonna complete numbers 5, 6, and 8 on your own. So in a few moments, you're going to pause and work on it. So now that you've finished, let's recap. Fragments, right, are usually missing something. So in order to convert them, you have to identify what is missing. They usually are missing either a subject, complete predicate, sometimes both, or an independent clause, And do not forget, to capitalize the first letter of each sentence and add your punctuation at the end. Thank you for watching my video. I hope this helped. Peace.